Good morning, Mary. I'm just reading your comment here. Fellow clutter critters. Good morning, fellow clutter critters. Good morning, Mary. Good morning, everyone. This is Ask a Clutter Boss, the internet's best decluttering advice show. We are live weekly at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Hi, Denise. It is February 25th, 2025, and the topic that I want to dive into today is all about shopping and consumption. um, I've seen a lot of questions in our Facebook groups about compulsive shopping or addictive shopping behaviors or just how to stop bringing so much into our homes. Good morning, Carrie, and good morning, DA. So, if you've done Clutter Boot Camp before, and I hope you have, and if not, I hope that you plan to, if you've done Clutter Boot Camp, or if you've been to any of my workshops ever in the last 5 years, you will know that the first thing I talk about is how we have to stop the flow of items into our home. If we don't stop the flow of items into our homes, and not permanently and not 100%, but if we don't slow down the amount of items that are coming into our home and increase the amount of items that are going out of our homes, we will never get decluttered. And hold on, I just need to turn off this one thing on my other screen here. It's giving me a little distraction. All right. So we have to still slow or stem or stop the flow of items into our homes. And it's never been more difficult to do that than it is today. As you know, we struggle with what I call the consumption trifecta. It is human nature to collect resources. That is how we have thrived as a species for so long. It has never been easier to collect resources. We see approximately 10,000 advertisements every single day, and these ads are so sneaky. You don't even know you're seeing an advertisement when you see an advertisement sometimes. And because of highly intelligent predictive algorithms, based on your previous shopping history, like in general, any algorithm knows basically how much you've spent and what you spent it on. And they can use that data to figure out what you're most likely to purchase next. So the algorithm knows what you're going to do before you know what you're going to do. And if you even just talk about a topic, you will see ads for something related to that topic anytime you open up your computer, your phone. It's really insane. And you can test this out too. I mean, it's shocking. Have a conversation about something specific with your phone nearby. You don't need to have your phone like unlocked or anything. It just needs to be nearby. And then wait about 10 minutes and open up a social media app or go on to Google, go anywhere that has ads. It seems to happen more quickly on social media apps. And you will see within a couple of minutes ads for whatever that thing is that you were talking about. Test it out. I tested it out recently with I just random topics, silk scarves from India. And I started to get ads for silk scarves from India. It's just insane. And then it's never been easier to bring stuff into our homes, right? We don't need cars. We don't need to drive anywhere. We don't need to be awake. Parasomatic shopping is a real thing. We don't need cash. We don't need money at all. We can put it on credit. So it's just never been so easy for stuff to come into our homes. And a lot of times shopping can be very addictive. We get a dopamine hit when we purchase. Actually, we get a dopamine hit when we find something that we want to buy, not when we make the purchase, which is a really important distinction when we're talking about decluttering, because the dopamine hit comes from the hunt, not from the sale. So the hunt of the item, it kind of goes back to our cave people days. When we found the prize, we got the dopamine hit, not when we, not like what happened after that. And actually, a lot of times, because we live in a dopamine rich culture, we have to get continually, like increasingly more dopamine to feel that same powerful sensation. So we have to shop more or find a better thing or the next thing. But then also what happens afterwards, because you have a dopamine hit and then you kind of like sink down. that gets worse and worse and worse. And if you've struggled with addiction of any sort, or you know somebody who has struggled with addiction, this pattern probably sounds very familiar. The problem with addictive behavior when it comes to shopping is we actually, unlike other addictive behavior, drugs, alcohol, gambling, those are what people talk about a lot. And again, I'm not a therapist, but I have worked with thousands of people who have gone through this process, and there's so many connections. So I'm just really speaking from my experience as a coach. But all of that to say, it is much more difficult to overcome or a shopping addiction because we have to shop. Okay. We don't need to drink alcohol. So if you're an alcoholic, you can stop drinking. Like, I mean, you could, like, you don't have to do that to survive, right? The same thing with gambling. Like, you don't need to gamble to survive, but you do actually have to shop. Period. I mean, you can't completely stop shopping. You can't, which is one tool that is used frequently with addiction, is just to stop the behavior entirely and never go back to it. You can't do that with shopping. So I think shopping addiction or compulsive shopping is really a difficult behavior to overcome because of that. But that's not to say that it's impossible. And there's, of course, a huge spectrum when it comes to compulsive shopping and shopping addiction. And for most people who are on this spectrum of behavioral issues or just behaviors, there's things that you can do that are going to really change the landscape for you. So let's talk about what you can do if you're struggling with compulsive shopping or shopping addiction, or just you find that you're shopping just too much for comfort. Number one, delete your credit cards from your phone, from your apps, from everything. Don't save your credit cards. You want to have a little bit of space between finding the item, the dopamine hit, and buying the item. That's when the dopamine starts to wear off, right? So we want to give ourselves a little bit of thinking time. And if we have our credit cards saved and stored in our browsers, in our phones, we really don't have a lot of time to have that stop and think. You want to make it difficult for you to actually, as difficult as possible, to make a purchase. Get up, go get your credit card, think about, put a little note on your credit card, tape a little note with a question you might want to ask yourself. Really give yourself that space to make a rational decision. Another strategy that we have is, if you're online shopping, put stuff into the cart and leave it there. Again, you get the dopamine hit, you found the item, you put it into the cart, but come back to it a couple of days later and then decide, do I still need or want this? Because a lot of times it's in the moment that you make the decision that you want something. And if you give yourself a little bit of thinking time, you can change your mind. Move to cash. This is a this is definitely a strategy that works for a lot of people. Get rid of your credit cards. Maybe have one just for emergency purposes, but pay with cash. Paying with cash is a tremendously powerful strategy that it makes it much easier to spend less money. You actually have to physically hold the money in your hand before you give it off to somebody else. It's very different than a credit card transaction. So consider moving to cash. Challenge yourself to save money. So get that dopamine hit from watching your savings increase or paying down your debt instead of from purchasing something. That's a really powerful one too. Have a great way to track how much you're saving so you can open up something and see, oh, my savings went up by this much. Maybe you have an app on your phone or something like that. But if you have an app that tracks that, or if you have a way to track that, that's going to really help you change the behavior, because you're focusing on something like you're focusing on a goal, and you will still get a lot of that. Again, back to the dopamine, you'll still get a lot of dopamine from that feeling of watching your savings increase. Um, Find people who don't shop and hang out with them. So a lot of times our social network is influencing what we do. And if you have that friend who's like your shopping buddy, or you're, the person, if you're, the person that you call and you're like, hey, what do you want to do? Well, let's go shopping. Maybe that person can be your walking buddy, or your let's go out for coffee buddy, or something else. Change the people that you hang out with. If there's somebody in your life that is always encouraging you to purchase stuff and you're trying to reduce the amount that's coming into your house, tell them that, or find somebody else. Like surround yourself with the people who do the behaviors that you are trying to bring into your life. Um, those are my top tips here. And remember, well, don't be too hard on yourself. We live in an incredibly difficult environment when it comes to consumption, and overcoming all of these little obstacles is actually a really big deal. So if you are really hard on yourself, you brought stuff in, you're hiding it from your family, you're have that shame dialogue going on, I would say just give yourself a little bit of love. This is a really tricky and complicated thing. Oh, and of course, the best tip, which I did not say yet, is if you need support from a therapist, get support from a therapist around this. I mean, there's so many different layers of support that you can find in your life to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. Don't be ashamed to reach out for help when you need it. We were never meant to do things in isolation. We don't have the skills to do everything on our own. It is so powerful to have the support of somebody, especially a trained professional, when you're going down this path of a challenge, some big thing that you're trying to change, a behavioral pattern, an addictive behavioral pattern. Get support and don't be ashamed of that. There is nothing more inspiring in my book than somebody who is continually trying to change their habits and improve themselves. I think that that is worth so much more. That says so much more about who you are than the actual behavior that you're trying to break. So seek support as needed. And if you want community and support from the Clutter bosses, get into It's All Clutter, our free Facebook group. Join a Clutter boot camp. These are great places. I actually want somebody had posted a question about this in It's All Clutter recently, and there were 65 responses in like 3 hours. I mean, talk about a supportive group. That is incredible. All right. Well, thank you for coming to my talk today on compulsive shopping. If this is something you struggle with, please reach out. You're definitely not alone, and there is a path forward. Sending you guys so much love. Go keep fighting for yourself, and I will see you same time, same place next week. Have a great one, everyone.